On the scene, on the story. News on 6 starts now.
New at 9, how social media helps make a little girl's birthday one her entire family will always remember.
And why a proposal to cut more money from schools has some teachers pretty angry tonight.
But our top story at 9, a vigil for the 3 teenagers shot and killed when they broke into a home in Broken Arrow. A man who was home at the time shot and killed Max Cook, Jacob Redfern, and Jacob Woodruff.
News on 6's Justin Schreier is on the scene for us tonight at that vigil. Justin?
Lloyd, good evening. What started out as a peaceful vigil ended up in chaos. I want to step out of the way real quick and give you a look. Just minutes ago, this was a very peaceful vigil until somebody ran into the crowd, yelling and screaming. Everyone seemed to scatter here. Police are on scene behind me. There are several ambulances here behind me as well. More than 100 people did show up here tonight, including friends and classmates and family members, to remember those 3 boys. The vigil did start out with the teens' favorite songs, and then several people stood before the large crowd talking about some of their favorite memories. Many people we spoke with tonight say the boys they knew were far from those who are accused of burglarizing a home on Monday, a crime that eventually led to their deaths. People described the 3 to us as outgoing and even quirky.
They meant so much to me. They kind of helped me when I was feeling down every single day.
Now, according to court documents, a 4th person, Elizabeth Rodriguez, acted as the getaway driver Monday night. She turned herself in and faces 3 murder charges in relation to those 3 teens' deaths. Now, as we said, police are still on scene here, really trying to figure out what just occurred. Live on the scene on the story in Owasso, Justin Schreier, News on 6.
Police officers came from all over the country today to show their support for Officer Justin Terney. News on 6's Tess Monty covered his funeral, and she's on that story for us from Pittsburgh County.
Here at Canadian schools, the flag is at half staff and the marquee is lit up to honor Officer Justin Terney. His funeral was held here at the high school gym. This is the small town just north of McAllister where he grew up and where he graduated high school just a few years ago. His final farewell was one fit for a hero as officers escorted his body to the cemetery. Hundreds of officers came to Pittsburgh County from across Oklahoma and across the country to honor the officer who gave everything he had. Officer Lori McManus flew in last night from a county just east of New York City. She said nothing could have stopped her from coming here to honor Officer Terney.
When I heard of it, I knew I was coming. Just one big family, and we all feel like he's a brother to us. We didn't know him, but it's as if we did.
Although most of the people who came to show their support had never met Officer Terney, there were still many here who knew and loved him well. They say he'd wanted to be an officer from the time he could talk, a dream he worked hard to accomplish and did when he joined Tecumseh PD as a rookie last January. Outside of work, they say he loved to hunt and to fish, and he liked to keep people smiling, and he also had a great love for chocolate milk, which those who knew him well say he actually called it chalky milk. Justin's next big goal was to become a canine officer, and he was training his own canine, so he was close to making that dream become a reality as well. Reporting on the scene on the story in Canadian, Tess Monty, News on 6.
Police in Oklahoma are watching tonight for a Tennessee teacher and the 15-year-old student he's suspected of kidnapping. The 2 were last seen here in Oklahoma. A security camera at an Oklahoma City Walmart shows 50-year-old Tad Cummings and Elizabeth Thomas were there on March 15th. The 2 disappeared 2 days earlier from outside Nashville. An Amber Alert is out tonight for Thomas, and Cummings is charged with sexual contact with a minor and aggravated kidnapping. Tulsans can now use an app to remind them to show up for court dates. The app is called CourtBot. The app reminds people to go to court so they don't get a warrant for failure to appear and face even more fines. Programmers worked on the app for several months for free. School districts across Oklahoma are trying to figure out how to handle more budget cuts expected next year. TPS is considering up to 7 furlough days, which the district says would save $1 million each day. Well, News on 6's Marty Casper says the idea has some teachers furious. He's on the story in Tulsa tonight.
Well, Craig, while having furlough days would save the district a lot of money, it would cost some TPS teachers more than $1,300 a year in pay, and it would take students out of the classroom during critical developmental times.
It's not what anybody wants, and the blame lies squarely in Oklahoma City.
Patty Ferguson Palmer is president of the Tulsa Teachers Classroom Association.
A lot of people in Tulsa would be hurt, and it would affect the whole city.
She ran the numbers on how 7 days off would affect some teachers' pay.
It would be absolutely devastating.
A new TPS teacher with a bachelor's degree makes less than $33,000 a year. With 7 furlough days, the salary drops by more than $1,300. And an experienced teacher with a master's degree would lose more than $1,500 a year.
I don't see how we can possibly expect to have a teaching force if their paychecks are going to be smaller.
State Senator Gary Stanislawski says lawmakers have been working to fix the budget.
That is the #1 area of focus for us.
Saying rolling back tax cuts is part of the solution.
We have to bring some structural rebalancing to the state.
Stanislawski says the state gave big tax breaks to energy companies.
The state was very generous in some of the tax credits.
But that was when business was good.
That's okay when you have plenty of money coming in.
But now that the state doesn't, Ferguson Palmer says it's time lawmakers vote to put kids first.
Well, put your money where your mouth is. Obviously you don't support education because you've done everything you can to make it impossible to keep schools open and running.
Stanislawski is proposing a tax increase at the pump to help pay for some teacher raises. He also thinks districts need to restructure their funding source, relying less on state funding and more on local reoccurring funding. Live on the scene on the story in Tulsa, Marty Casper, News on 6.
Well, for some of us, the clouds kind of hung around, at least in the Tulsa area northward, and you can see the impact that had on temperatures. We'll put this into motion for you. You can again see more southern counties had sunshine all day long. Meanwhile, we didn't get much sunshine until late in the day. And it's also back to the west of us. That's our next storm system that's going to be coming our way, and it'll be arriving in our area by tomorrow night. Notice the impact on temperatures, though. Upper 50s for the northeastern counties. Bartlesville, for example, only 58. Meanwhile, Durant, 82 degrees. 70s in southwestern Oklahoma. Meanwhile, the northwest corner, where the clouds were thicker, only in the 40s and 50s there for daytime highs as well. Here in the metro area, 63 downtown as well as Owasso. Coweta, 67, 62 Broken Arrow. And right now, we've not cooled off a great deal, still holding pretty much in the 50s, 55 downtown, 56 in Jenks and Sand Springs, 51 over towards Claremore. We're looking at a nice start to the weekend, but keep the rain gear handy because you're going to need it before the weekend is over. Another cool down coming our way as well. All that in a few more minutes, Lori.
All right, Dick, thank you. Well, state lawmakers are now halfway through the legislative session, and the governor says they are nowhere near finding a budget agreement. Also, the state's rainy day fund is now tapped out, and lawmakers will miss a huge deadline tomorrow. News on 6's Aaron Brilback is on that story for us from the Capitol.
This week, state lawmakers did little to bridge the state's estimated $900 million budget hole, but they were surprised to find out the state is flat broke.
We're halfway through the legislative session, and we need to get down to business.
Governor Mary Fallin is urging the legislature to begin focusing on the state's budget woes.
We have had minimal discussions on the state budget. You've seen basically nothing pass at this point in time.
The situation is so dire, State Finance Secretary Preston Dorflinger tapped the rainy day fund this week, borrowing $240 million just to pay the bills. Legally, Dorflinger can do it, but he didn't tell the legislature.
What's concerning to me is that the legislature was not notified that those funds were going to be accessed by the executive branch.
The legislature will not make an April 1st deadline to fund education, breaking a law that it's been breaking for more than a decade.
Educators know the scenarios that we're under. We've done some things in the past that free them up a little bit.
Legislative leaders say they just don't have enough information to know how education spending will be impacted. The House of Representatives doesn't anticipate cuts to education.
I expect that common education funding for public schools will be protected.
But Senate leadership says small cuts are likely.
When they consume nearly a third of the appropriated dollar, it's very difficult to hold them harmless and not eliminate the rest of the state government.
A Senate committee did roll back tax breaks for wind energy, but the roughly $50 million in savings will not help this budget.
It's time to really start making some decisions.
Next week, the Senate is expected to pass the tax credit rollback for wind energy. House Democrats have also suggested increasing the tax on oil and natural gas production. They say that would generate about $460 million per year. On the scene on the story at the state capitol, Aaron Brilbeck, News on 6.
We have new developments tonight about that DVD player that exploded in a Green Country woman's car. News on 6 told you Monday about that Sylvania DVD player exploding while the woman's kids were watching it in the back seat. Well, in a statement today, Sylvania says they have a license agreement with Curtis International allowing them to use the Sylvania brand on specific products that Curtis manufactures and sells. Sylvania says they're not involved in the manufacturing, sales, or distribution of that particular product. Curtis has arranged for what's left of that exploding DVD player to be sent to them for an inspection.
And new tonight, a witness says the driver of the pickup was texting when he hit a Texas church van head-on, killing 13 people. That witness says he called not one but 2 sheriff's offices in 2 different counties to report that driver. The Texas Department of Public Safety is investigating that crash. They're not commenting on whether the driver was texting, but they do say it looks like he crossed over the center line.
New at 9, 3 people are in custody tonight in Atlanta in connection with last night's fire on a busy interstate. One is charged with first-degree criminal damage to property. The other 2 are charged with criminal trespass. The fire started in a storage lot underneath the highway, causing part of the interstate to collapse. Now, repairs will cause months of delays and headaches for the 220,000 drivers who use that section of the interstate every single day.
Well, construction is causing some detours for drivers in one part of our area. Why that has some neighbors pretty upset tonight.
And our Oklahoma weather experts are tracking the chance for weekend storms on our Osage Casino Skycam network. Dick Farrow tells us when they could arrive.
And next, how some Green Country kids are catching the attention of a major internet company by crashing drones.